Humans are weird. That's what everyone says in the United Galactic Council chambers, and honestly, they're not wrong. We're the new kids on the block, the cosmic kindergartners who somehow managed to cobble together faster than light travel using duct tape, caffeine, and pure stubborn determination. Captain Jack Novak stood at the viewport of the massive rotating space station known as the Nexus, watching the swirling ballet of alien ships against the backdrop of stars. His reflection showed a man in his 40s with perpetually amused eyes and a scar that cut through his left eyebrow, a souvenir from humanity's first diplomatic misunderstanding with the Voltar Confederacy. "Captain, the council session begins in 10 minutes, said Lieutenant Maya Okafor, his communications specialist, who approached with a tablet in hand. Maya was the epitome of diplomatic poise, which balanced out Jack's tendency to say exactly what he thought. Diplomatic consequences be damned. "Any idea what fresh nonsense we're dealing with today?" Jack asked, straightening his Navy uniform with its single gold stripe, the mark of Earth's interstellar diplomatic corps. "The Jacksiri are complaining about our music again. They say our rhythmic noise pollution is disrupting their religious ceremonies 3 sectors away," Maya replied, somehow keeping a straight face. Jack snorted. "Tell them to turn down their psychic receptors. Not our fault they evolved with telepathy, but no concept of a mental mute button." Behind them, Technical Officer Raj Patel was busy with a holographic display, manipulating Earth's latest trade proposals. Raj was the team's resident genius, the guy who could explain terraforming technology to a species that breathed methane, while simultaneously adjusting the translator to account for their 17 different verb tenses. Diz. "By the way," Raj called over, "we've got another request from the Tranchulans. Their ambassador wants a private meeting." "Tranchulans?" Jack raised an eyebrow. "The blue guys with the freaky eye stalks who run half the trading routes in the Orion Arm." "That's them," said Security Officer Thomas Webb, the 4th member of their team. Thomas was built like a Marine because he had been one before joining the diplomatic corps. His job was to look intimidating and occasionally remind alien species that humans weren't just clever talkers. Word is they're looking for new partners since their deal with the Krell fell through. The Nexus Station's central spire housed representatives from over 300 spacefaring civilizations, most of which had been zooming around the galaxy for millennia while humans were still figuring out that fire was hot. Humanity had only secured a seat at the big table 5 years ago, and most species still viewed them as amusing novelties like watching a toddler trying to join an adult conversation. "All right, team," Jack said, turning away from the window. "Standard protocol today. Maya, keep the translations precise. Raj, have our tech specs ready but keep the good stuff under wraps. Thomas, look scary but don't actually threaten anyone this time." That Glixian had 8 appendages reaching for what looked like weapons, Thomas protested. "They were ceremonial egg warmers," Maya corrected with a sigh. Jack grinned as they walked toward the council chambers. Welcome to galactic diplomacy, where everyone thinks humans are too young, too brash, and too unpredictable to be taken seriously. He paused at the massive doors that led to the chamber. "Let's go remind them why that's their mistake. Not ours." 6 months later, Captain Jack Novak found himself seated across from Ambassador Clix of the Tranchulan Mercantile Collective, watching with barely concealed amusement as the alien's eye stalks swiveled independently, one fixed on Jack, the other scanning the trade agreement hologram floating between them. "So," Clix said in the smoothly modulated tones of someone who had closed 1,000,000 deals before breakfast, "we are in agreement then? The Tranchulan Collective will provide exclusive shipping rights for Earth goods across 17 sectors, and in exchange, the humans will share their revolutionary terraforming technology." The Tranchulan's blue-tinged skin rippled slightly, their equivalent of an eager smile. Jack leaned back in his chair. The meeting room on the Nexus was designed to accommodate dozens of species, which meant it managed to be uncomfortable for everyone equally. "Almost in agreement, Ambassador. We're happy to share our terraforming methods, but we'd like assurances that they won't be used for military applications." Clix's eye stalks quivered, a sign of either amusement or indigestion. Jack wasn't entirely sure which. "Military applications?" My dear Captain, we Transulans have been peaceful traders for 12 millennia. The very suggestion is almost offensive. Almost offensive is my specialty, Jack replied with a grin. No offense intended, Ambassador, but humans have learned that technology has a funny way of evolving beyond its original purpose. Our terraforming tech can make barren worlds habitable, but with a few tweaks, it could also make habitable worlds very, very uninhabitable. Lieutenant Meyer leaned in from Jack's left. What the captain means, she said diplomatically, is that we're eager to establish safeguards that benefit both parties. Of course, Clicks waved a three-fingered hand dismissively. We understand your species' caution, given your limited experience in galactic affairs. There was that rippling skin again, which Jack was beginning to interpret as the Transulan version of a condescending smirk. Raj Patel cleared his throat. Our terraforming systems use proprietary quantum calibration algorithms that require regular authentication codes from Earth servers. We'd be happy to provide training and support for your engineers. The true brilliance of this arrangement, which Raj had designed, was that it gave the Transulans access to the technology while keeping a critical component, the authentication system, firmly in human hands. Standard practice for dealing with new partners, especially ones as slippery as the Transulans were rumored to be. Ambassador Clix's primary eye stalk focused intently on Raj. Your species' paranoia is charming, if inefficient, but very well, we accept these terms. The Transulan extended a blue hand. I foresee a most profitable relationship between our peoples. Jack shook the three-fingered appendage, noting the slight suction cup sensation against his palm. To profitable relationships, then. Within weeks, the alliance was formalized. The United Earth government approved the final treaty, and Transulan ships began appearing in Earth's solar system, their distinctive spiral-shaped vessels becoming a common sight in orbital shipping lanes. The first terraforming stations were established on 3 Transulan-controlled moons in the Rigel sector, with mixed teams of human and Transulan scientists working to transform the airless rocks into potentially habitable outposts. Progress reports flowed back to Earth regularly, all indicating remarkable success. They're adapting to our technology faster than expected, Raj noted during a briefing 3 months in. Their engineers are brilliant. They've already suggested several improvements to our containment field generators. Is that a problem? Jack asked, scanning the technical reports. Not necessarily, Raj replied. The authentication system is still secure. They can't initiate major terraforming sequences without our authorization codes. Thomas, ever the skeptic, frowned from across the table. I still don't trust them. Something about their eagerness doesn't sit right. Maya scrolled through diplomatic updates on her tablet. The Council seems impressed by our partnership. We're gaining credibility with several of the elder species. Jack nodded. For the first time since humans had stumbled onto the galactic stage, they were being taken semi-seriously. The alliance with the ancient and respected Transulan collective had elevated Earth's status considerably. Just remember, he said to his team, in galactic politics, everyone has an angle. Let's make sure we don't lose sight of ours. If only they had realized how prophetic those words would prove to be. The alert came at 0347 Earth Standard Time, jarring Jack from a rare decent sleep. Captain Meyer's voice was tight with controlled panic. You need to get to the command center immediately. 15 minutes later, Jack stood white-knuckled before a holographic display showing live feeds from New Terra, humanity's farthest colony in the Epsilon Eridani system, or rather, what remained of it. The once thriving settlement of 50,000 colonists now lay under churning clouds of noxious green gas. The buildings were collapsing as the very molecular bonds of their construction materials disintegrated. Plants withered in fast-forward decay, and the colonists Jack had to look away from those images. What the hell happened? He demanded, voice like gravel. Raj's face was ashen as his fingers flew over control panels. It's our own terraforming technology. But reversed, instead of building an atmosphere, it's destroying one. Instead of creating stable molecular structures, it's unraveling them. Casualties? Jack forced himself to ask. 8,000 confirmed dead, Thomas replied, his military bearing barely containing his fury. The rest evacuated to orbital platforms when the attack began. The colony is completely lost. Attack. Jack repeated the words slowly. We're certain this was deliberate. Maya nodded grimly. 17 Tranchulan ships entered the system 3 hours before the event. They bypassed our security protocols and transmitted modified authentication codes to the terraforming substations we installed last month. But that's impossible, Raj protested. Those codes are quantum encrypted. They'd need access to our central servers on Earth too. They had helped, Thomas cut in, throwing a data packet onto the main screen. Internal sabotage from someone with high-level clearance. Jack felt cold fury building as the implications sank in. The Tranchulans had played them perfectly, gaining their trust, learning their technology, and then turning it into a weapon of unprecedented destructive power. 12 hours later, the emergency session of the Galactic Council was a circus of barely contained chaos. Representatives from dozens of species filled the massive chamber, their voices creating a cacophony of translated outrage, curiosity, and most infuriatingly amusement. Ambassador Click stood on the central platform, eye stalks held high in a posture of righteous indignation. These human accusations are absurd. The Tranchulan Collective has been a pillar of galactic peace for millennia. If their colony suffered some unfortunate technological malfunction, that hardly constitutes an act of war. The Council Elder, a wizened Dralaxian whose species had been spacefaring when humans were still living in caves, turned his compound eyes toward Jack. Captain Novak, do you have definitive proof of Tranchulan involvement? Jack strode to the center of the chamber, brushing past Clicks with deliberate disregard. The holographic evidence Raj had prepared began playing above the central Daesh ship identification logs, communication intercepts, and technical analyses of the modified terraforming systems. What you're seeing is an act of premeditated genocide, Jack's voice carried through the chamber without shouting. The Tranchulan Collective deliberately weaponized technology they obtained under false pretenses, then deployed it against a civilian target. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Most species viewed humans as amusing upstarts, clever apes who had stumbled onto the galactic stage by accident. Few took their grievances seriously. Clicks's skin rippled with what Jack now recognized as smug superiority. Even if hypothetically some rogue elements within our collective were involved, what exactly do you propose to do about it, Captain? Your species barely understands interstellar travel. You have no significant fleet, no defensive capabilities against a civilization as advanced as ours. Several council members chittered in what the translators rendered as laughter. Jack waited for the noise to subside. When he spoke again, his voice had dropped to a dangerous quiet that somehow commanded more attention than any shout. There's something you should understand about humans, Ambassador. Something all of you should understand. His gaze swept the chamber. We're not just explorers and diplomats. We're survivors. For most of our history, we've fought each other with devastating creativity. We've nearly destroyed ourselves countless times, yet here we stand. He took a step closer to Clicks. You think you know what we're capable of because you've seen what we chose to show you. You think because we arrived late to this galactic community that we must be harmless. Jack's smile contained nothing of humor. You have made a catastrophic miscalculation. Clicks's eye stalks twitched nervously despite his confident posture. Humanity formally withdraws from all agreements with the Tranchulan Collective, Jack continued. We will seek justice for our murdered colonists, and let me be perfectly clear about what that means. He paused, making sure the translation systems caught up. When you chose to attack humans, you signed your own death warrant. Jack turned and walked from the chamber, leaving stunned silence in his wake. They think we're bluffing, Commander Eliza Ricochet Rodriguez said, her dark eyes scanning the tactical display in the secure war room aboard the UE's Intrepid. Every intelligence report confirms it. The Tranchulans believe we're making noise to save face, but that we lack the capability to retaliate meaningfully. Jack watched the holographic representation of Tranchulan Space 58 star systems, hundreds of colonies and outposts, and a fleet that outnumbered Earth's nascent navy by at least 20 to 1. Let them keep thinking that, he replied. The door slid open as Maya, Raj, and Thomas joined them, completing what had become humanity's impromptu war council. For the past 2 weeks since the attack on New Terra, they had maintained a facade of diplomatic outrage while secretly preparing something the galaxy wouldn't expect. Status reports, Jack asked. Thomas stepped forward first. Earth Defense Force is on full alert, but visibly so. We're making sure Tranchulan intelligence assets see exactly what they expect, a panicked military response with limited capabilities. Maya nodded. Diplomatically, we're making a show of appealing to other council members for support, knowing full well none will commit to helping us. It reinforces their perception that we're desperate and alone. Meanwhile, Raj added with uncharacteristic grimness, Operation Trojan is proceeding exactly as planned. Phase 1 is complete. Phase 2 initiates in 18 hours. Commander Rodriguez gestured to the tactical display, which shifted to show a magnified view of the Tranchulan homeworld and its surrounding defense network. Their overconfidence is our greatest advantage. They've made no significant changes to their security protocols. Jack studied the display. They really believe we're just going to roll over and accept this, don't they? Why wouldn't they? Rodriguez replied. Every other species they've bullied or betrayed over the millennia has done exactly that. The Tranchulans have been playing this game since before humans invented the wheel. Too bad for them, we're changing the rules, Jack said. Raj pulled up a different display showing hundreds of tiny dots scattered throughout Tranchulan space. These are all the terraforming modules we provided them over the past 6 months. Each contains our proprietary technology, and each includes the backdoor access point we built specifically for this contingency, which they never found because they were too busy looking for the obvious security measures we practically waved in their faces, Thomas added with grim satisfaction. The beauty of the plan lay in its simplicity. While making a show of protecting their terraforming technology with prominent security features, the authentication codes, and quantum encryption, the humans had hidden a much more subtle backdoor. Every module contained nanoscale transmitters that could be activated remotely and simultaneously. Once triggered, Raj continued, the modules will broadcast a signal that will temporarily disable their quantum communication network. Not destroy it, just create enough interference to isolate their systems from each other for approximately 47 minutes. Maya pulled up another display showing cargo manifests. During that window, the autonomous drone freighters we've been sending into their territory for the past month will activate. Each contains thousands of smaller drones programmed to target very specific vulnerabilities in Tranchulan infrastructure. They're expecting a military response, Rodriguez said. Warships and weapons. They're not looking for an attack disguised as everyday commerce. Jack nodded slowly. And a secondary objective. Raj's expression was solemn. The modified terraforming sequence has been loaded into their own central environmental control systems. Once their defenses are compromised, we can trigger the same weapon they used against New Terra, but calibrated specifically for Tranchulan biology and infrastructure. A heavy silence fell over the room. What they were contemplating wasn't just retaliation, but potentially the end of a civilization that had existed for thousands of years. To be clear, Jack said quietly, I'm not authorizing the use of the terraforming weapon unless absolutely necessary. This is about justice, not genocide. Primary objective is to cripple their military capability and force unconditional surrender. And if they don't surrender? Tomas asked. Jack met his gaze steadily. Then we demonstrate on one uninhabited moon what we could do to all their worlds. I believe they'll get the message. T-minus 18 hours to execution, Rodriguez confirmed. All systems are in place. Then we proceed, Jack said. Let's show the galaxy what happens when someone mistakes human restraint for human weakness. The Tranchulan High Command Center on Tranchula Prime was in chaos. Warning klaxons blared as emergency lighting bathed the cavernous room in pulsing blue. Elder Commanders Calthoon's eye stalks swiveled frantically between display screens showing cascading system failures across their empire. What do you mean we've lost communication with the defense grid? He bellowed at a junior officer. That's impossible. All quantum relay stations are experiencing simultaneous interference, the officer reported, his skin pale with stress. We're isolated from our fleet, our colonies, everything. On the main screen, real-time footage showed thousands of small objects detaching from what had appeared to be ordinary cargo containers in orbit around key Tranchulan worlds. The objects, clearly sophisticated attack drones, swarmed toward defense installations with terrifying precision. "How did they get past our scanners?" demanded Security Director Vex. A technical analyst's voice trembled. They weren't registered as weapons. The signature matched standard human shipping containers. We've been receiving them for months. Elsewhere in the galaxy, the Galactic Council had convened an emergency session as reports flooded in of the unprecedented attack. The massive council chamber, normally a place of procedural decorum, now buzzed with shocked conversations as representatives struggled to comprehend what they were witnessing. "The humans are supposed to be primitives," hissed the Jaxiri representative. "How are they coordinating an attack across 58 star systems simultaneously?" The Dralaxian elder's compound eyes blinked rapidly. More importantly, why did none of us foresee this possibility? On the central display, footage from Tranchulan space showed orbital defense platforms going dark, planetary shields failing, and communication hubs exploding in silent starbursts. Ambassador Click stood frozen in horrified disbelief as his private communicator chirped. When he activated it, Captain Jack Novak's face appeared. "Hello." Ambassador Jack's voice was casual, almost friendly. "I thought you might appreciate a personal update on the situation." This is an outrage." Click sputtered, aware that the entire council was watching the exchange. Unprovoked aggression against. "Let me stop you right there," Jack interrupted. "First, it's hardly unprovoked, as the 50,000 inhabitants of New Terra would attest if they weren't dead. Second, you should know that we've just taken control of your central environmental regulation systems." Click's eye stalks trembled uncontrollably. "That's not possible." "Funny thing about your security protocols," Jack continued conversationally. "They're excellent against external attacks, but remarkably vulnerable to subversion by trusted sources, like, say, the terraforming systems you were so eager to install everywhere." On Trantula Prime, Elder Commander Zakal Thun received the most terrifying report of his long career. "Sir," a pale technician reported, "foreign code has been detected in the planetary atmospheric control system. Analysis indicates it's the same weaponized terraforming sequence used against the human colony, but modified for our biochemistry." Skal Thun felt his 3 hearts stutter in their rhythm. "Can you block it?" "Negative. It's spreading through our network too quickly. Estimated time until it could be activated, 12 minutes. Back in the council chamber, Jack's holographic image addressed Clix with chilling calm. "Here's what happens now. The Tranchulan Collective will immediately surrender all military assets to United Earth Control. You will provide full reparations for New Terra. You will identify and surrender every individual involved in the attack." "Or what?" Clix managed, though he suspected he knew the answer. "Or we demonstrate our weaponized terraforming technology on Trantula Prime," Jack said simply. "Your entire civilization took centuries to build. We can unmake it in hours." The council chamber erupted in shocked exclamations. Never in recorded galactic history had a newcomer species managed to bring an elder civilization to its knees so completely, so quickly. On Trantula Prime, Zakal Thun made the only decision possible. "Transmit surrender protocols on all channels," he ordered, voice hollow. "Stand down all remaining defenses." Within the next hour, Tranchulan commanders across 58 star systems received the unprecedented order to surrender to human authorities. Ships powered down weapons systems as Earth vessels far fewer than anyone had expected arrived to accept formal capitulations. The galaxy watched in stunned disbelief as the mighty Tranchulan collective traders, conquerors, and manipulators for 12,000 years fell not to a superior military force, but to human ingenuity and the patient laying of traps. As promised, once surrender was confirmed, the humans deactivated the weaponized terraforming systems they had positioned throughout Tranchulan space. They had won without deploying their ultimate weapon, a show of restraint that was, in its way, even more terrifying than the alternative would have been. 6 months after what galactic historians were already calling the Tranchulan humbling, Jack found himself back in the Nexus Station's diplomatic wing. The viewport still offered the same spectacular view of passing starships, but something fundamental had changed in the traffic patterns. Human vessels now moved with an authority they hadn't possessed before, given wide berth by ships of other species. The Voltar Confederacy has formally requested a non-aggression pact, Maya reported, joining him at the window. That makes 17 major powers in the past month. Jack nodded. And the Tranchulans? Reconstruction proceeds under Earth oversight, she replied. The reparations fund for New Terra is fully established, and the criminal tribunals have identified all major conspirators in the attack. The doors slid open as Raj and Thomas entered, followed by Commander Rodriguez, who had become a permanent addition to their diplomatic team, a subtle reminder that humanity's diplomatic corps now had very visible teeth. The council session? Jack asked. Procedural matters mostly, Tomas replied, though you'll be interested to know that 3 more species have sponsored Earth's petition for a permanent council seat. Rodriguez smiled thinly. Amazing how persuasive we've become lately. The galaxy had indeed undergone a paradigm shift. Species that had dismissed humans as amusing primitives now studied Earth culture and history with intense interest, particularly humanity's long, brutal experience with warfare. What they found disturbed them deeply. A species that had nearly destroyed itself countless times had developed a creativity for conflict, unlike anything the relatively stable galactic community had imagined. You know what the Jaxiri ambassador asked me yesterday? Jack said, turning from the viewport. Whether it was true that humans invented 47 different ways to split the atom before we even left our planet's surface. What did you tell him? Maya asked. I said I didn't have the exact count handy, Jack replied with a slight smile. No sense confirming or denying anything these days. Let their imaginations work for us. Later that day in the council chamber, Jack delivered a brief address that would be transmitted across the galaxy. The room was fuller than usual, with even minor species sending representatives to hear the human perspective. The events of recent months have changed the galactic landscape, he began without preamble. Some have characterized our response to Tranchulan aggression as excessive or troubling. I want to address that concern directly. The chamber was silent, every translator working overtime to ensure his words were understood precisely. Humanity does not seek dominion or empire. We sought justice for an unwarranted attack on innocent civilians, and we obtained it with minimal loss of life. What should trouble you is not that we defended ourselves effectively, but that we had to do so at all. Jack scanned the assembly slowly, making eye contact with representatives from elder species who had watched the Tranchulan attack with indifference or amusement. The true failure was not of military strategy but of community. When one member of this council was attacked, the rest stood by. In human history, we learned painfully that peace is not merely the absence of conflict, but the presence of justice. He paused, letting the words sink in. Moving forward, know this about humans, we prefer friendship to fear. We would rather trade than conquer. But make no mistake, we protect our own. If you extend a hand in cooperation, we will grasp it firmly. If you raise a hand to strike us. Jack smiled thinly. Well, the Tranchulans can tell you how that ends. As Jack concluded his address and the council moved to other business, a new understanding permeated the chamber. Humans were no longer curiosities or amusements. They were not simply clever apes who had stumbled onto the galactic stage by accident. They were something the ancient galactic powers had forgotten how to recognize: dangerous. And for the first time in thousands of years, the elder species felt something they had nearly forgotten: the cold bite of consequence for their actions. The knowledge that betrayal now carried risk. The understanding that not every species would accept mistreatment as the natural order. As Jack had promised in that first heated council session, when you chose to attack humans, you signed your own death warrant. The galaxy would not forget the lesson.